What if your metabolism isn't broken, but brilliantly adaptive? Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry, host of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. And in this episode, I'm joined by Carla Wainwright to dismantle one of the most harmful myths women carry into midlife. We've been taught to fear weight gain, slow down our eating, and push harder when our bodies change. But what if those changes were actually signals, asking for safety, nourishment, and rhythm? In this conversation, we explore metabolic health through hormones, the nervous system, and feminine wisdom, not shame and restriction. Because your body isn't failing you, it's communicating. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am so grateful to be joined today by Carla Wainwright. Welcome back to the show, Carla.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So if you missed our previous conversation, I sat down and talked with Carla in episode 3 about pleasure as a prescription and reclaiming midlife vitality. It was an amazing episode. And one of the things that Carla was talking about in that episode is connected to metabolic health in midlife. So as soon as we got done recording, I was like, oh, would you be willing to do another episode with me? And she graciously agreed to come back. So for those of you that did not catch episode 3, go back and listen. But for those of you that haven't listened to that episode, if you wouldn't mind, Carla, telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do before we get started.
Absolutely. So I'm a holistic wellness coach, and I also call myself a midlife alchemist. I'm pretty sure I shared a little bit about what that means, but basically what my passion is supporting women 40 plus to really find the gold that's within. That's what alchemy is all about. And I do that using tools from lifestyle around metabolic health, of course, pleasure, sexuality, and embodiment, and all of those various pieces. And so I really believe that women, as we age, we're really stepping into the most powerful time of our lives, into leadership, into our wisdom years. And I really want to support women to do that from a place of vibrancy and vitality.
I love that. Now you see why I had her back. I think that, let's face it, statistically, we are hitting such a large number of women. I think it's going to be reaching, 1 billion women coming into perimenopause in the next 5 years. There's a lot of us that are being affected. Us, yes, I'm part of that population as well, that are being affected by these changes that are happening in perimenopause and menopause. And I am finding an increasing number of people knocking on my door going, what's going on? Can we stop the bus? I'd like to get off. But really what it is that the body is trying to communicate and is saying, hi, there are parts of your life in your health picture, your relationships, your job, whatever, that are out of integrity. And we are symptomatic because you are out of integrity with who you are. And who you are is now shifting. Hormones, life experience, all of these things are shaping this shift. And one of the symptoms that I get the most complaints about is the menobelly, the little pooch there that everybody's like, well, I used to be able to see my toes and now I feel like I'm bloated in my midsection. all the time. And so when Carla in the last episode was talking about metabolic health in midlife, I was like, oh, we need to dive into this because this is something that is really concerning for a lot of people. It affects your relationship to yourself because you have this picture of who you are in your mind's eye, and now the person that you're seeing in the mirror looks very different. You're also throwing in on top of it for people who have gotten pregnant in their late 30s and early 40s. You might be dealing with the collision of postpartum body dysmorphia and hitting hormones in this phase of your life. So there's a lot of things that are going on when you are hitting your late 30s, early 40s, and beyond. So let's talk a little bit about metabolic health in midlife. I don't know where you want to start with that. It's kind of a broad topic, but I know it's one you're very passionate about.
Yes. Yes. Metabolic health is a passion of mine because it really represents the foundation of how good we feel in our bodies. And there is really this collision, this perfect collision that happens. And it's true, it does start in our late 30s and then progresses onward of hormones, stress, and then lifestyle. And so independently, each of those things can be very challenging on their own. But as we begin to move into that perimenopausal and then menopausal transition, the effect of those three things coming together becomes very challenging for a woman living in 2026. So let me back up and just share a few things. So we have, of course, the hormonal shifts that are happening in a woman's body that pretty much begin sort of in the late 30s for most women. And so we lose some of those protective roles that hormones had for us. So for instance, we had estrogen. So estrogen begins to decline, but it's also doing this kind of like up and down sort of thing. And one of the things that estrogen does is it supports insulin sensitivity. So it allows your muscles and your liver to use glucose efficiently. So because estrogen is fluctuating and eventually declines, that protective effect weakens. We also have progesterone declining. It is this calming, balancing effect on the nervous system. Its decline contributes to more cortisol reactivity. So things that stressed us out maybe only a little bit in the past suddenly become a much bigger deal. If we have more cortisol in our bodies, we also become less insulin sensitive. I'm going to explain why all of this matters here in a moment. And then we've got testosterone as well, too, having an influence on our insulin resistance as well. If we couple that with the stress of our modern lifestyles, I really do feel like there is a huge biological mismatch between this physical body that took hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years to evolve under very specific conditions. And then we fast forward to our modern age where the amount of stress and the chronic stress that we experienced, we didn't really we're not really evolutionarily designed for that. And so we have a lot of pressures, a lot of challenges, and this then becomes a second layer on top. All of these stressful events also has a metabolic effect on the body. And so when we couple all of this together, what ends up happening is that whereas we were able to perhaps eat in a certain way, live in a certain way, none of that becomes possible anymore because we don't have those modulating effects of our sex hormones, and we have the increase of the effect of stress in our bodies, which then creates this, like I said, perfect storm where we become much more insulin resistant. I can explain what that is in a moment, but I'll just take a pause because I've spoken quite a bit. I want to give you a chance to jump in there.
I think that is a really great explanation because a lot of people ask me, like, what's going on with my hormones right now? And you said it beautifully in the fact that our hormones gave us a level of buffer.
Yeah.
And just think about all the demands of midlife, right? Like some of us have young kids, some of us have older kids. I think it is super rude that Mother Nature thinks it's hilarious to put teenagers and women who are in perimenopause in the same household. Anyone who is living that, you know what I'm talking about. So you have those kinds of stressors. Some are caring for aging parents. There's a lot of things that all kind of collide, and you have higher level responsibilities typically in the jobs that you're holding. So all of that together is stressful enough under normal conditions. And now you're taking away your body's ability to filter that stress and manage that stress. And it's nothing that you're doing wrong. Let me put that out there. You're not doing anything wrong. And sometimes people are like, my body's broken, it's rebelling against me. And it's really just a matter of your biochemistry is changing. If you think about it this way, you're actually getting a neurological upgrade as you're going through this process, because you had a whole bunch of estrogen receptors in your brain at the start of this process. And as you go through this process, those change the actual neural network. And I think this is so magical about women, actually, is that your entire neural network in your brain changes because your biochemistry is changing. And yet, when you come out the other side, you still have some level of estrogen in your system. You are female. It is different than it was before. This is why you're no longer a cycling body. But it allows you to have this incredible level of care for community and doing things through heart-centered knowing, and yet not being subject to the same, I hate to use the word volatility, but the up and down of the hormone cadence that you were getting before. So you feel a little more like a guy, where you go to bed feeling a certain way, you get up in the morning and you still feel a certain way, rather than it being like different every day because your hormones are going up and down and all of these things as you're going through a menstrual cycle, right? So there's a lot of really beautiful gifts there. The way that you move through the world changes. However, it's not a smooth process, and then add stress in on top of that, and it makes it a fairly bumpy ride for some people.
Yeah, I would say it is a fairly bumpy ride for some people. And the effect of chronic stress, I mean, there's so much information out there, is really quite staggering. And the effect on women's health is also really staggering. So you may know that 80% of autoimmune diseases are with women.
Yep.
Right. And that just the only 7% of adults in Canada, United States are considered metabolically healthy. 60% of adults have one chronic disease and 40% have two or more. And women are really disproportionately affected. The rate of hypothyroidism and high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes, and 1 in 5 women is going to develop Alzheimer's disease. And so our metabolic health is really so key and central to this, and stress is such a big part of that as well. So even there's some women who they were divinely given this capacity to navigate life without a lot of stress, but that's not the reality for most women. And so what's happening as we start to move through that perimenopausal journey is something we actually really need to pay attention to. I think most of us want to live well into our postmenopausal years, feeling really good in our bodies, feeling capable, feeling able to do all the things, all the activities that we want to do, be able to maintain beautiful relationships, keep our minds sharp, really step into those wisdom years from a place of feeling empowered and really good. And we want to live till our very last breath as healthy as possible. Mm-hmm. And so, you were saying earlier that we're getting these messages from the body. Yes, and we need to pay attention to them, because what can lie on the other side of menopause can be so incredibly liberating and empowering and impactful and so needed in our society. And at the same time, we have to support this physical vessel so that we can step fully into that version of ourselves. And so those signals, those messages you're getting from your body are asking you to pay attention and to start making shifts so that the best is really yet to come. If we just pretend it's not happening, or we really fall into that narrative of like, I'm broken, you're not broken. Your body is trying to tell you, hey, listen to me, pay attention. There's that saying, of course, we want to hear the body whisper so it doesn't have to scream. Often
so
the body
true.
just has to start speaking louder and louder. It's like, hey, pay attention. So I think that rather than seeing those signals as annoyances or things to feel very frustrated about, absolutely, I can understand. I've been in that place, but rather to see it as an opportunity in your body, really speaking from a place of deep wisdom to give you the opportunity to take better care of yourself.
I love that. I really love that. Yeah. It's inviting you to the table and saying, listen, I'm trying to co-create a balanced reality with you, and you're not supporting me in doing that. And I think that's important, particularly as we're headed into midlife, or if we're already in it while we're listening to this, that it is an invitation to co-create a different experience instead of looking at it like the body is betraying you. And I hear that phrase a lot. I feel like a stranger in my body. I feel like my body's betraying me. Yes, you're undergoing a really big shift, but your body isn't your enemy. Your body loves you and is trying to communicate with you in the only way that it knows how. And that's where I feel like a lot of my work lies, is I help you decode what it is that your body is telling you. Like, this symptom means this, and this is how you can support her best.
Yeah, beautiful. I just so agree. And I think this is also part of our conditioning and this distrust of the body. And I think there's a huge sort of patriarchal narrative that overlays all of this, is to have this intense distrust of our bodies. And so, yes, I think if we can just pause and reframe that and understand that your body is always, I mean, your body is really a miracle, and there's no accidents. And so your body is really trying to communicate with you the best way it knows how to get your attention.
Absolutely. And I like the whisper before the scream. Yes.
I'm sure we've all had screams.
Yes, we've all had screams. That screaming happens at different levels too. Like, I know that mine started screaming at me very early on in my life. And I finally woke up one day and was like, I need to do something about this, and started really listening to her. I'm one of those people that has an autoimmune condition as a result of trying to work like a man for too much of the younger years of my life. And honestly, we are not little men. We are not meant to work like men. We have beautiful gifts that our hormones give us in every phase of our cycle that could make us as, if not more, wildly productive than men can be. But we have to learn how to be able to work with them. And when we hit midlife, I mean, one of the biggest complaints I hear from people is menobelly. And I'm seeing a scary number of people that are going to GLP-1s because they think it's a quick solve for this menopausal belly, the fluff, as some of my clients call it, that's starting to happen around their midsection. But you put fat on there because it converts to energy more efficiently. Your body's doing a big process. See how we already flipped the frame? Like, what is going there is actually your body's way of trying to support itself to have enough fuel to do this process with. So if you're working with somebody who is very fixated on this menopause belly, and there's lots of symptoms that people come in with, but this is the one that I feel like I hear people complain about the most. Yeah. Where would you start?
Yeah, so I think we first start with a lot of compassion and understanding about what's happening in the body. So we already had a little bit of a discussion of understanding your hormones are fluctuating, and this is the effect that it's having on the biochemical processes within you. And I think that's one of the first stages, is just understanding like, oh, actually, I'm not broken. This is all to be expected. And in many ways, your body has this incredible intelligence. Instead of putting fat around your organs, it's actually putting it around your midsection, which is keeping you alive, right? And so really celebrating the incredible wisdom of your body. So when I start working with someone, we just start looking at various areas of lifestyle and implementing slow, incremental changes that really help to create some momentum. So we first of all, of course, look at food. So when I referenced earlier, like the impact of lifestyle on our metabolism, even though we live in this incredibly modern world, we're enormously we're just so unhealthy. Our food system is so compromised. We spend most of our time inside, not even getting any natural light. We're not active, right? We're sitting most of the day. So there are all of these various things that really go against our biological design, right? We have a biological design that really needs to be honored, even within the context of living in these modern lifestyles. So taking a look at food and really looking at where can I start bringing myself back to more whole foods. Ultra processed food is just, I really think it's evil. It's terrible how this has become, for all kinds of reasons, really tied to money and control. This becomes, for many people, is one of the primary ways that they're fueling their bodies. And so a lot of gentle understanding education about how do we bring back more natural whole foods and do this in a way that's sustainable. And so spending a lot of time around that. And then also looking at some of the really important pieces around timing and circadian rhythms. So what I mean by timing is our bodies are not really designed to be taking in food all of the time. They need a period of rest, and then they need a period of nourishment. And so even just reducing your eating window to 12 hours a day can be enormous for some people. And having not eating anything for the first hour when you wake up and not eating anything for the 2 hours before you go to bed, that in itself can be a game changer, right? So that you giving your body a rest, you're helping to stabilize your blood glucose levels. It's helping you become more insulin sensitive, which, just in case your listeners aren't aware, so what insulin does is it takes the glucose that's circulating, and there are receptors on the cells, and it pulls it into the cells so that the cells can then use that as energy. So for the fuel that you need to do all the things that you want to do. What happens is that if there's too much glucose circulating, then your body has to keep producing more and more insulin to get the same effect. So when we say insulin resistance, it means that whatever the previous level of insulin was moving in the body isn't adequate anymore. So the body has to work harder producing more just to get the same effect. So that hack that I just shared, well, it's not really a hack. I think it's just a really solid lifestyle practice of keeping your eating window at 12 hours with that buffer at the beginning and the end. That in itself can be a huge game changer. And then we work at modulating that, but we always start with these small incremental pieces. And then the other piece around the circadian rhythm that's also so important is just making sure we get natural light. Most of us, it's just like the natural light we get is looking out of a window that is coated. So we're not getting all of the right light coming into our eyes, the natural light. And we're stepping from outside to the car, and then maybe from the car to the store or to our place of work. We need light. We need to get all of those different wavelengths in our eyes. It is fundamental to good sleep. It is fundamental to being insulin sensitive. It is fundamental to your body operating properly. So returning back to some of these, they're seemingly very simple, but sometimes not so easy to integrate into our lives. These types of things of really supporting the body to do what it naturally does and what it wants to do. It wants to move into this place of balance. So that's not usually, this is where I start. And then there are other layers that we add on top of that as a woman starts to feel better, starts to feel more, we'll say, like herself, and feels ready to take that next step.
How much light do you typically recommend to your clients? Because I'll tell people first thing in the morning when you wake up, it's important to get the red light spectrum in your eyes, bluer light in the middle of the day at the peak of sunshine, and then light again right around dusk, which is that red light spectrum again. Do you tell people certain amounts of time to spend at different points in the day, or?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's the ideal and then there's the realistic.
Yep.
Right. And I fall into that all the time as well. So if you can get 5 minutes, then 5 minutes is better than no minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, it would be great to get 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, maybe 20, to get that midday light That bright light, really important. Again, that'd be like another 20, 30 minutes. And then at the end of the day, but that's not, most people are not going to be able to do that. Our lifestyles don't really allow for that. I mean, for a small few, it does, but generally, no. So I would say, like, even if you can just get 5 to 10 minutes and then just make that part of your routine, something is always better than nothing. And I think what's so important is momentum is the most critical piece. So small incremental steps build upon one another, and then they help create the desire to move into something more. So if you were just prescriptive and you gave like these big chunks of time, nobody would do it. They would feel completely defeated, and then nothing really happens, right? So yeah, I guess there's the ideal and the realistic. It's my short answer.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's how I approach things with my clients too. I'm like, if you're trying to integrate this thing and it's just causing more stress rather than feeling nourishing in your system, then it's not helping you in the ways that I want it to.
Yeah.
So let's take that a step further. So we talked about light. What kinds of foods are helpful for people who are insulin resistant?
So we want to really think about nourishing the microbiome. And so we can think of the 3 Ps like probiotics, prebiotics, and polyphenols. So those are really important. So the probiotic foods, we can think about all of the fermented foods. Those are really good. Foods that are like prebiotic that help nourish the bacteria, things like chia seeds and hemp hearts and leafy greens and all kinds of vegetables and things like that. And then the polyphenols are often related to the really healthy fats like olive oil and coconut oil. But there's a wide variety and a wide spectrum. So I do encourage people to make sure they eat a little bit of that every day. And now, if you haven't been used to eating those kinds of foods, maybe when you first eat them, you're like, I don't really love this. But here's the thing. Your microbiome, I heard somebody refer them as bugs the other day. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But anyway, like the little critters.
Yeah.
The bacteria in your system, well, your microbiomes are more than bacteria, but let's just say that. They dictate your cravings and your tastes. So if you are eating a lot of processed food, your microbiome is going to be representative of that. And those species are going to make you crave more of that kind of food. The more that you begin to shift towards choices that are more in harmony with what your body needs, you're going to start to want those foods. You're going to start to crave those foods. So you want to start small, and it might not be your favorite at first, but trust that your body's wisdom and this whole incredible ecosystem that's inside is going to support you in those choices the more that you make them. Again, it's about finding that momentum. So if we think about what we eat, so we want to make sure that you're hitting those 3 things, the prebiotic, probiotic, and the polyphenols, but also really doing like a dive into your pantry and starting to remove the things that are ultra processed. Because if they're in the house, you're going to eat them, right? And so I help women do a bit of an inventory around that and really try to focus on what are the easy whole food things that I can do that are very high in protein. Women need more protein. That's also going to help keep you satiated. Making sure you're getting enough good fat, which is also going to help you feel more satiated and full and not reaching for the treats that really are causing a lot of that belly fat. And really moving in terms of carbohydrates towards nature's carbohydrates rather than the processed and the complex or the refined foods like that. So it's a process, and a lot of people aren't used to necessarily cooking for themselves, or they aren't used to shopping in that way. So again, it's about creating momentum, starting to feel better, starting to notice how your palate is changing, the things you want are changing, and then building upon that.
I like that. I tell people, keep it simple, walk around the outside of the grocery store.
Yes.
When you start. Right. Because I find that like people will glaze over and they just kind of look at me like, you're asking me to overhaul my whole diet. And I'm like, well, yes, but we got to start small, right? So when you go into the grocery store, the things that are along the outside are going to serve you best. So let's start there.
Yeah, exactly. And just providing some is just simple, easy, doable recipes that taste good. And then that creates a desire to do more of that.
I love that. So If you were to suggest to somebody who's like, all of this sounds really great, but I don't know where to start, where would you
Yeah.
recommend beginning this whole process? Aside from reaching out to you, because people should do that too. I highly recommend you reach out to Carla because she's really good at this. But just like sometimes people are like, I would like to be able to start doing something today. Where
Yeah.
can I begin?
So where can you begin? I guess I would say pick one change that you can make in your diet. Pick one thing that you can do to get outside and just get some natural light. Like, so one diet thing, maybe it's like, I'm going to just move my eating window to 12 hours. Or maybe I'm just going to make sure, maybe I'm not even doing that, but I'm going to make sure that for 2 hours before I go to sleep, I'm not going to eat anything because that's going to have a huge impact on sleep, which is also, we didn't talk about that at all, but also a really huge challenge. I'm going to just try to get outside for 5 minutes and get some light in my eyes. I'm going to also make sure that I include pleasure. So go back and listen to the last episode because that is so important. And that also creates this beautiful cascade of positive hormones and helps your sex hormones and helps reduce cortisol and stabilize insulin and all of those sorts of things. So I think it's just about finding like these micro things that you can do and then just sticking with that. Stick with it for 7 days. Notice how you feel. And then when you feel ready to add the next incremental step, then go ahead and do that. But I would say, yeah, something in diet, something around pleasure, and something to do with getting outside and getting some natural light. Those would probably be three, some, I think, pretty easy and doable things to do that can then build upon each other.
I like that. That feels very manageable. And I think that's something that people can really wrap their head around. I do, before we end this episode, though, I do want to go back and talk about sleep.
Okay.
Because sleep is a big one. You are right. We should have talked about sleep earlier because that is one of the most common complaints also. So secondary to the middle belly, I notice people complain about sleep first. Although I think, at least in my practice, they will mention sleep first, but they'll complain the loudest about the belly. But sleep is very hard during this time frame. And it does have to do with how your hormones are changing and your sensitivity to stress.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, sleep is one of those things that is impacted in the same way that our blood sugar is impacted by all of this perfect storm of everything coming together. And sleep, I think sleep is so sacred. It is medicine. We need sleep. And then, of course, I've struggled with sleep since I was a child. So I really take sleep, like I hold it in deep reverence because when you do sleep, it's like life just has a whole different picture, right? And then when you're not sleeping, everything becomes so much harder. So I really deeply empathize with women who are struggling with sleep because I've been there and I still continue to be there from time to time. So in terms of what helps with sleep, the light helps with sleep. If you get light in the morning, it is going to help stabilize that relationship between cortisol and melatonin and help set you up for a better sleep at night. So if you needed a reason to go outside, it's because you're going to sleep better if you get that morning light. It is really important. Not eating. I mean, I'm just circling back. Not eating for a minimum of 2 hours before bed will dramatically improve your sleep. You shouldn't be in full digestion mode when your head hits the pillow, right? You want to have that kind of big process of digestion done for the evening. Your blood sugar will be more stable, which means you'll be able to come into a deeper, more restful sleep. And there are all kinds of other things. Like, of course, this one is so hard, is to get off of your phone for an hour before bed. That blue light is terrible. You can wear those glasses, but, creating rituals around sleep and taking it really seriously. Go to bed earlier. Read a book.
Yeah.
Books, those things. We used to read them all the time. Yeah, have a ritual where things are quiet, no TV in the bedroom. If you have the ability to take a bath or do things that are really going to downregulate your system and just really, it's a non-negotiable. Create your sleep routine and these pieces that are important for your sleep, really treat them as sacred and know that it's going to be imperfectly perfect. or maybe not even close to perfect, and your nights may vary. But if you can put in these solid and very tried and true pieces in terms of your overall lifestyle, your sleep absolutely will improve. There are, of course, many different kinds of herbal remedies, and sometimes melatonin can help. There are things that you can take, but you want those to be the add-on. You want to start always with those really foundational lifestyle pieces, because they're so important in a variety of other ways in our life, but they're also so important in sleep. And then once you kind of see where you're at there, then you can look at, okay, well, maybe I need to take some kava or a melatonin here and there, or whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the light piece, you'll make melatonin more appropriately when you're getting the light during the day. So I'll often say to my clients, like, yes, there are herbal things that can help support sleep, but we're not looking to sedate you. We're looking to support the healthy functioning of your body so it will downregulate and go to sleep on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is so important. The take-home message is that all of these great supplements and things and hacks, fine, but everything starts with lifestyle. Everything starts with how we're setting up our day, what we're putting in our bodies, the environment that we're in, reducing stress, connecting to pleasure, relationships, oxytocin moments, all of those things. This is the foundation of a lifestyle. All those other things are things we look at afterwards to perhaps tweak or enhance in some way, but they are not where we start with the solution. We start with this body.
Yes. Without your health, what do you have? Right? Like when people get sick, like really sick, and that tends to happen more in midlife. They have a partner that gets sick and they can't work or whatever, right? And all of a sudden the reality crashes down. Holy cow. I really can't do anything. My health is everything. Yeah. And so for the people who are like, well, I don't have time for that, I'm inviting you through this conversation to really take a hard look at, well, do you have time to miss work? Do you have time to not be there for kids' activities and things like that? Because eventually this organic thing that you live in is going to say, here's the thread and it is broken. And here is the symptom that I am giving you that is going to shut you down until we can replenish enough. Right? So it starts with things like my kids bring home everything to me. Well, that's showing there's a chink in your armor, my friend. Right? Like if you're catching everything that they're bringing home while their immune systems are developing, but you already have one, that tells me that there's a chink in your armor that needs to be addressed. And that can only be addressed when you start to put your own oxygen mask on first before you put on those of others. And particularly in midlife, that can be very hard or feel very hard. It doesn't have to be very hard. It feels very hard.
Yes.
Because we have these social expectations that we are supposed to martyr ourselves. And really and truly, one of the things that snap into focus during your perimenopausal journey is boundaries. Where have my boundaries been porous? Do they feel good to me being porous? Generally, the answer is no. And we step into this new paradigm as we're going through our midlife transition where we start saying no to a hell of a lot more things because we're now finally speaking from our truth rather than trying to people please everybody around us. It's just like that whole, man, I'm so much more confident in my 40s than I was in my 20s. Well, it's because you give less of a shit about what anybody else thinks. And I don't mean that in a callous way. I mean that in a very powerful way, where all of a sudden you are living life on your terms and what is in alignment for you. And in that transition, it feels bumpy and it feels like you can't say no to things because you've always said yes when your body said no. You've always done it. So now you've set the expectation. And this is what gets so bumpy for people around you during this transition is you start saying no if you're being true to yourself. You start saying no to some of those things you used to say yes to, and then everybody is like mystified around you. But the truth of the matter is, you are the sovereign governor of your body. You deserve to be able to sit on your throne and say, yes, this works for me, and no, this doesn't. And not feel shame and guilt around that. And we've been conditioned to feel shame and guilt around not sacrificing ourselves on the altar of motherhood, womanhood, whatever it is, because there are these social expectations that have been built around what it means to be a woman, and that you're supposed to put everybody else first. At this stage of your life is where the rubber hits the road. If you have not already figured out how those two little letters go together, the N and the O, you're going to have to get really comfortable with them, because your body is going to start yelling, because you're going to reach that breaking point of, I don't have the energy or the capacity for this. And that's where that bad cascade of symptoms comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's so much wisdom in the body, and that impulse to be more assertive with your boundaries. That again is no accident. My gosh, we could talk about this for hours. But yes, I mean, there is this rewiring that's happening in your brain, and it's priming you to step into a place of more leadership. And leaders have boundaries. Mm-hmm. They do. So it is such a gift. I really want to leave your listeners with understanding that even though the symptoms can feel very frustrating and you don't like the menopausal midsection and you're struggling with sleep and there's all of these things happening, you're really stepping into a portal and there's an opportunity there. And so I invite the reframe. I think last time we talked about, of course, the beautiful metaphor of the butterfly and going into the chrysalis and the goo, and like the menopausal belly is part of the goo.
It's part of the goo.
But what comes out through on the other side, but the big if is like, if you support yourself through the process, right? Don't give up on yourself. Support your body. She is asking for more. She is asking for you to step into the most powerful version of you. And so it's an opportunity. And so when you say, like, I don't have the time, well, your future self is asking you to make the time.
Yes.
She's like, pay attention. Like, you're important. I'm important. We have things to do. And I want you here with me. Right. Yeah. And so really paying attention to that. And the excuses, I get it. Like, our lives are full, but they are excuses. And your future self is really calling you in. So pay attention. She's waiting for you. And so, yeah, the invitation is there. Take better care of yourself. What are the things I can do so that I can really step into that future version of myself that is as vibrant, healthy, alive, empowered, juicy, all of the things as possible.
Ooh, I was going to ask you for a final thought, but I think that was it, Carla. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. That's the part that I really hope to impart on people through these episodes is like, there's so much negative talk around, oh gosh, they're perimenopausal. Like, it's really being painted and framed as such a disaster and a dumpster fire in people's lives, but it's not. You are transforming. You are going through a metamorphosis. And sure, any change comes with its sets of bumps in the road and things that aren't smooth. But like, you are stepping into one of the most powerful periods of your life. This is not another chapter in your book. This is a completely new volume in your series of your life. And when we look at it as a reclamation, really, of self and coming home to your essence self and being able to speak from your heart and from your truth without any shame, guilt, whatever people project on you or society has projected on you, and being able to be the most true, authentic version of who you are. What kind of freedom, man? Yeah. It's so freeing, and that's powerful, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Right? Powerful women are scary. So of course there's this like veil of, oh God, this is going to be awful. Everybody needs to dread this and go on hormone replacement therapy. No. Like, you are becoming a really powerful human being as you're coming through this portal. I love that you described it as a portal. I talk about it that way too. And this is the way you're going to be moving through the world for the rest of your life once you've made this transition. So being able to put on your own oxygen mask and pour into your cup, like, I think that's one of the things that I'm sitting right on the doorstep. So Chinese medicine looks at the perimenopausal journey in 7-year blocks, that women's bodies change in 7-year cycles. So 35 marks the beginning, according to Chinese medicine, of this evolutionary process. That's what I'm going to call it, an evolutionary process, because that's really what it is. And so 42 is the next one. Okay, so I'm sitting on the doorstep as we record this of my 42 transition. Woohoo! And so I'm already seeing some of what that 42 to 49 is going to bring for me. I'm already seeing it. So in the year of the snake, we're leaving 2025, moving into the year of the fire horse in 26. And the year of the snake for me was all about shedding. It was shedding identities that didn't fit me, ways of talking about myself that didn't fit me, lifestyle stuff that didn't fit me. There was a whole bunch of shedding that went on. This year is very much about body first, business second. How can I prioritize myself and my health, even with a little person? I have a toddler, man, and I have teenagers, a toddler and teenagers. Okay. So if anyone could be sitting on the doorstep of all of the stress and crazy that can happen when you're in your 40s, I'm there. I have aging parents, all the things. I have the mug and the t-shirt. So as I'm sitting on the brink of all of this, like, my husband has made comments about, well, this project hasn't been completed, or, oh, the thing that lit me up the other day was, we go camping in the summertime. We live in a campground. So we get lots of natural light, right? Like, I actually get anxious when I come home from camp in the fall, because I know that I'm not literally going to be living outside for part of the year. That's how much my body really loves being in the natural light and being outside as much as camping allows me to do. But anyway, I didn't plant my garden this past year because I was postpartum. I knew we were going to be at camp. I was like, I only have so much energy to go around. So he was talking about the fact I haven't pulled the weeds, that because it overgrew this last year because I wasn't doing anything with it. And I just looked at him and I was like, sir, there's only so much of me to go around. And I have chosen to prioritize my sleep. And I have chosen to prioritize, and I listed off a whole bunch of other things, because this is what's important right now. That will still be there. And when I have time, I'll go take care of it. They're not going anywhere. Now, 5 years ago, I don't think that would have come out of my mouth, because in my head, I would have told myself a story that I'm not enough. I didn't get it done, so I'm failing somehow. Like 5 or more years ago, this is the garbage I would have told myself. So 1, this is an illustration of the power you're stepping into, but 2, how you have to hold that boundary for yourself and love yourself enough to say, my sleep is worth it. My mental health is worth it. My health is worth it. And that is a tomorrow problem. Right now, I'm going to bed. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, like, I love that you shared that. It's funny though, as you're talking about weeds, I'm looking outside at the 1.5 foot of snow and the -20 centigrade. So we're way past weeding season. But Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love that you're just stepping into a voice that is really clear about your own needs and your boundaries. And seriously, the weeds can wait.
Exactly. The weeds can wait. And it's funny, as you look around your house, so, where Carla was talking about like bite-sized ways of getting started, I'm going to also take that one step further, and I'm going to invite you to also consider, what are you putting on your to-do list out of obligation and what actually has to be there?
Yeah.
I started doing a to-do list for the day and a to-do list for the week, because I would try to put everything I had to do on one list, and I constantly felt like I was missing the bar somewhere. And this way, I intrinsically have the satisfaction of being able to cross all the things off my list. But the other part of it is realizing that I was putting the pressure on myself. So how much of this pressure do we put on ourselves to do certain things, show up in certain ways, all of that we can shed and let go of in order to create some of this space for ourselves? Because something will have to fall off the plate, but you should not be the thing that falls off the plate.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think that's a beautiful way to do it, is to just actually kind of map it out. And it's, okay, what are the things that, of course, as when we have all of these things that we have to do, that we really do have to do, like you have to show up for your kids, and there's family obligations, and yes, there's things in your house that have to be attended to, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't have to be. And we've kind of created a narrative, and that really speaks to perhaps like really checking in, like, why do I feel like I need to do those things? Are they creating a sense of belonging or worthiness or all of those pieces? I mean, all of this stuff is so intricately connected, but taking that stand for yourself is just such a powerful, you used the word reclamation earlier. It's such a powerful reclamation. And I will say once again, your future self is thanking you.
So if people want to reach out to you, Carla, and they want to work with you on how to essentially bring their life back into balance in midlife, how can they get a hold of you?
So the best way is to go to, I have a free download, vibrancyreset.com, and it speaks to some of the really powerful shifts, some of them that we've spoken about today, that are very easy to implement, incremental. They create that momentum, and that takes you directly to my website. And I'll also say that I do run a program for women. It's 12 weeks called Feel Great in Your Body Foundations. And this is all of these pieces around metabolic health and circadian rhythm. We talk about toxins and gut health, sleep, all of these various things. So it's also a really great foundational program to take. And all of that you can find if you go to vibrancyreset.com.
Beautiful. I think that program sounds like something most people should definitely prioritize, put themselves on the priority list and take, because it checks so many boxes. And I think you'd be really surprised at how easy it is when you start looking at the little ways that you can change how you're doing something that you're already doing to incorporate some best practices. It's not going to be as daunting a shift, I think, as you think it is. So definitely check out Carla's website. We're going to have that in the show notes. And thank you again, Carla, for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, this was such a delight, Adrienne. Thank you so much for having me a second time. I really appreciate it.
Well, and until next time, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist, Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.